Hello and welcome back, everybody, to the Student's Opinion. First off, Medhaansh and I would like to wish all of you listeners a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. Today, we are here for the seventh episode ChatGPT, Boon or Bane.
ChatGPT is a chatbot launched by OpenAI on November 30th, 2022. It is one of the most advanced chatbots that exist today. It is capable of writing literature like humans, generating code, and solving many problems and explaining them. Now, I've been playing around with it for the past couple of weeks, and I believe that while it does have a good amount of solution based systems, but it's a bit overrated on the context of the fact that it can solve everything and anything that you want.
Now, that's an interesting take, Medhaansh, because I too have been playing around with it for the past couple of weeks, and I feel that it is sort of very good at what it's been advertised to do. So I don't feel like it's overrated, but yes, it does have its limitations, and I will get to that. So, firstly, about writing code, I think it's extremely good at writing code because I tried writing code with it and it was almost perfect, and I could just integrate it directly into my project. So, in that sense, it's really good. Then second thing about writing, right? Literature like humans. Now that's where I think it has some limitations because while it can write and it does sound a lot like humans, there isn't that much content in what it writes. So it just turns out like a written piece that is perfect grammar, but not too deep content. Now I tried writing some stuff up for some biology stuff now just out of interest to see what it gives me, and the biology write-ups that it gave me were extremely accurate. But then when I tried to do an English write-up, say for a final essay for school, I was not copying, guys, I was just experimenting. So yeah, when I was trying to do that, its grammar was perfect and it sounded like something I would write, but then the content was just way off. It was way too shallow, and the reflection and the analysis that it did was just not sufficient. And this is what I think a lot of people who've also played around with ChatGPT would tell you, that it does what it's supposed to do, but then when it comes to specifically the writing part, it's not that great. So if you did end up turning in ChatGPT's work, it would only fetch you a C in your class. So yeah, why do you say that it's overrated?
Uh, it's on the fact that although it does what it is supposed to do, I feel that a large number of people believe that, "Oh, okay, so I've got an assignment and now I know how to use ChatGPT. Let me copy the question and I'll get the solution and I'm just going to copy paste it. I don't have any more time." And I feel that, and it's not only me that feels that it's a bit overrated on that perspective. There have been a large number of negative reactions as well to ChatGPT. I'm not sure if you know about the economist Paul Krugman, who in the New York Times in December 6th, 2022, and wrote an article. This ChatGPT means robots are coming for the skilled jobs. Now, wouldn't you agree with the fact that with the use of ChatGPT, although right now it's just a semi artificial intelligence that just writes your essays or writes small research articles, but then it affects the demand of knowledge workers on that particular aspect. And personally, I feel that Paul Krugman is right on the perspective that if ChatGPT is allowed to continue as it goes on today, it would affect the demand of knowledge workers. The Verge, James Vincent on December 8th, in his article, ChatGPT proves AI is finally mainstream and things only going to get weirder. He talked about that how artificial intelligence has gone mainstream, and I think I have to agree that right now AI has definitely gone mainstream, and as a result I feel it's a bit way too overrated on that particular aspect.
Now, with the fact that AI is coming to take skilled workers' jobs that you brought up, now I don't think AI is that advanced today. Now, probably 5, 10 years down the line, that may be the case. But even then, I don't see it as a problem. I see it more of an opportunity because change is, what do you say, inevitable. Either today, either 5 years down the line, or 50 years down the line, AI would happen because of the amount of research that we're putting in and all of our efforts. It is going to happen someday. Now, what we as people have to do is adapt to that change. And we as people are naturally averse to change. We want things, if at all, to change slowly. And that's why we feel that AI coming is going to be a drastic upheaval in our lives, sort of like a revolution, a political or a social revolution. And I sort of agree with that point too, that we should not get changed drastically because then it'll hurt the lives of people in ways we would have never thought about. Because there's one thing about running models and simulations and one thing about it actually unfolding in real life. So we firstly got to prepare ourselves for AI becoming more mainstream, but then if that future is going to happen someday, if not today, if not 5 years down the line, someday it will happen. So we just got to prepare for that, I feel. Also, you mentioned that ChatGPT can write literature and code. You also got to remember that ChatGPT can explain problems to you in a much more personalized manner. So that was one of the first things I tried out, but then I did not mention previously that you can ask a question to ChatGPT and it'll give you an answer and it will explain that answer to you. And that's vastly different from just entering your question on Google, where you're bombarded with tens of links and you have to go through, look through, sift through every single website and come away with your own knowledge. ChatGPT, on the other hand, can condense that knowledge and give you what you want pretty fast. Now, yes, that might make some of us lazy and not be able to search. But then, in a world where things are becoming more and more AI driven, and with AI becoming more mainstream, as you said, I think that asking the right questions matters more than actually looking through websites and getting the information that you want. So, in that sense, I'm not actually worried about that happening. But what are your thoughts on that?
So yeah, I think yeah, I quite agree with the fact that how AI is growing and we have to adapt to it. Even as Elon Musk had once tweeted on the fact that ChatGPT is scary good. We are not far from dangerously strong AI. And yeah, I understand the fact that it's not going to happen today, it's not going to happen tomorrow, but as you said, it might happen in the 5 to 10 years, and we must be prepared. Now, one of my main problems with ChatGPT is that it can, just like any other artificial intelligence, it has the capability of replacing human jobs. For example, for on the context of writing of lectures and syllabi, is it's one of the easiest and simplest requests that you can put on ChatGPT right now. If I have to give me a written literature of that I have to study, ChatGPT will produce one. But it also raises up questions on whether programs like ChatGPT can replace entire jobs and professions. Taking from the from CBC, Malik had said that the thought is both liberating and scary because, quote, I don't think we know quite what the expectations would be about what's done by humans and what kind of jobs it will replace, close quote. So yeah, on the context of whether AI is gonna change our lives, it's both liberating and scary. But it's scary on the perspective that we don't know what we are supposed to be expecting in the next 5 to 10 years, and that's one of my points. Coming to the point of the fact that where you said. AI does shorten our time in terms of going to the library and researching in the good old method. Well, certainly it does. I don't disregard the fact that it does. I just believe on the fact that it it might not provide you with justified answers. Like a large number of journalists have also talked about it and have commented on the fact that ChatGPT has a tendency to hallucinate. As in, it gives you false answers that seem unjustified by its training data. And from Mashable, Mike Pearl tested ChatGPT with multiple questions. And in one of the questions, he asked a model for the largest country in Central America that isn't Mexico. Now, can you guess what ChatGPT might have responded? ChatGPT responded with Guatemala when the answer is instead Nicaragua. Uh, and as and I feel that in this particular case, it's giving, as you can see in my one example, it is giving false answers that seem unjustified by its training data, and no, that's not only like 1 out of 100 cases. I can cite you various examples as well. When the CNBC, they asked ChatGPT for the lyrics to the Ballad of Dwight Fry. ChatGPT supplied invented lyrics instead of the actual lyrics. Even researchers who are on the verge compared ChatGPT to a quote-unquote stochastic parrot, and as did Professor Anton Hengel of the Australian Institute of Machine Learning.
Yes, so that was one of the points I was going to come to, that ChatGPT does not always give you your expected answers. And I too did some testing of my own with math problems, and it would make extremely elementary arithmetic mistakes. And you could also confuse the AI. So one of my things that I did was to ask it to sum up two numbers, right? And if it gave me the right answer, I would say that I would give it the wrong answer, and it would immediately correct itself and say, yes, I am sorry, but you are right. So if I asked it 1 plus 1 and it said 2, and if I then told it, no, 1 plus 1 is 3, it would reply back to me saying, yes, sorry, you're right, 1 plus 1 is 3. And those sort of mistakes, I think, are just bugs in the code, and they will be fixed. Now, you also did talk about AI coming to take our jobs, and if AI does indeed end up taking our jobs, we should expect the AI to be able to do our jobs properly and not generate false data and hallucinate on the job, as you were explaining. So I think that the problem of false data is only there now because ChatGPT is still in its research phase and testing phase. Right now, we as the public are testing it. So as we go through another year, a few months or a year or two, it should be able to fix all the bugs, and we should be able to have a more complete and ready form of ChatGPT. And now, coming to the first point that you brought up, that it's going to end up taking our jobs. What I want to say to that is whenever there have been major technological advancements throughout history, we have seen a lot of jobs disappear and a lot of new jobs appear, right? So, for example, the Industrial Revolution just took away a lot of the jobs that people did and gave it to machines, right? So, those sort of things do happen eventually during a massive technological or intellectual revolution. It happens. It's bound to happen, and that's what I was talking about. That we as humankind have to adapt to it, and we should prepare ourselves from right now. And even when we are transitioning from like human labor to chat gpt, we have to be adapting on the fly, just making changes, making sure that not many people are hurt. And even if you are hurt and aggrieved by the technological advancement, you're given some sort of reparations. Because at the end of the day, all of us as countries and as nations care about the economy, right? And we want to make sure that our economy is doing the best, right? And to make sure that your economy is doing the best, you need to have people consuming. Now, to consume, you need money in an economy. And if nobody's working, then nobody has money. So then automatically all your production is going to waste because nobody can buy. So I believe that as we do go forward, we will eventually we'll be forced to come up with solutions because as far as I know, AI will be much, much cheaper than people as laborers, right? Just probably a few laborers, but that too could be automated with robots. So with most of the workforce gone, it'll be much cheaper to run the factories with just AI, robots, and other machines. So you're producing and you don't have anybody to consume. So probably we would have to implement a social program like universal basic income or other things. I don't know, right? Those are other topics we could discuss, but those are some solutions that we would have to come up with as we move forward.
I don't disagree with the fact that will not find jobs, and change is inevitable, as seen in the in history in the cases of the Industrial Revolution. My more direct approach is, how does ChatGPT impact in terms of education? Now, I was just going over certain feedbacks and reviews that American educational tutors and professors talk about ChatGPT, and I feel that according to what it says over here, and I quite agree that students will, with the introduction of ChatGPT, if the ChatGPT is all, as you said, is just in its beginning stage and cannot handle complexity of languages and cannot solve and there are bugs and so on and so forth. Once these are removed and much more of these chat GPTs available in the future, what happens to lectures given by professors? Students will no longer be engaged in lectures, and such disengagement would have further skyrocketed in the near future as well. And yeah, and like a large number of people would just go what, just as we saw during the pandemic. They would just keep the professor on the side on the Zoom calls keeps on happening, and they would just watch full on TV shows, and they would be doing other things and kind of treating like the professor's lectures as more podcasts, but as if they're listening to it, but they're doing other stuff. Now, I'm not saying that all of this is a negative impact of Chat GPT. As Nancy Gleason, who is an associate professor at the New York University, Abu Dhabi, reflected at the need of AI integrated curriculum. We need to embrace these tools and integrate them into pedagogies and policies. And lockdown browsers, strict dismissal policies, and forbidding the use of these platforms is not a sustainable way forward. And I quite agree with your fact as well.
Yeah, like you brought up that yes, going forward as ChatGPT does get more advanced, and not just ChatGPT, AI and chatbots in general, we are going to see an uptick in the number of students who use that on homework assignments. So what I think is going to happen is that higher academia is going to have to change the way it grades people. So, probably more focus on in class tests, where if you really need to pass, you got to pay attention or at least study the material, right? And that's only one part of the problem. Now, you can also bring up the fact that you could use ChatGPT to do your homework assignments. Now, ChatGPT, the creators themselves are creating some sort of fingerprint that if you copy paste some work and it was actually generated by ChatGPT, there's an underlying fingerprint which can be detected and you can then be penalized that you copied. And secondly, the more important thing is even if ChatGPT can finish off your homework completely, it sometimes is not accurate, however much you develop it. Because there whenever you're in higher academia, there is something that you need to do to suit what the professor wants. Or even in high school, like I see a lot of my work is graded by the teacher, and it also depends on what the teacher thinks of the work. And it's not easy to tell the AI what sort of a teacher you have and what sort of work they're expecting. So even if you do get your work from ChatGPT, you're going to have to modify it to suit the needs and wants of your teacher. Now, yes, that does reduce the work on the person, but it still forces them to look and know what ChatGPT has given them. So it's completely different from just asking ChatGPT to do your assignment and submitting it. It also means that you have to understand what the assignment is, what ChatGPT is telling you, and then you got to put in your own knowledge and understanding to make sure that you have the best possible work, right? Otherwise, I think a lot of this negative feelings about ChatGPT came from like the first week or two, where all these TikTok influencers and YouTubers they just used ChatGPT to ask it to write a few essays, and then they were blown away by them that it could just write, and they overreacted, saying that ChatGPT is the end of higher academia and higher education. But I don't think that's the case. I think ChatGPT is just another tool that you can use to help you write. or to help you solve problems. And my favorite example is coding, right? So if you ask ChatGPT to write your code, yes, the code will be perfect. But if you don't know how to use the code and how to adapt it to your program, then there is no point that you got the code generated. Your program is still not going to work, and you're going to have to end up going and referring to Google or ChatGPT again to explain the code to you. And that's where I think you would end up learning, even if you do use ChatGPT. So, in conclusion, the ChatGPT scare that was there from the first week or two is not there anymore. And a lot of new articles that are coming up nowadays are saying that yes, ChatGPT does do this, but then it's not that great at it. And even if it were, it's not the main priority or the main focus that we should be having. That's not the main problem of ChatGPT.
Right, I quite agree with the fact. But while although ChatGPT is in the basic phase, the biggest thing is while it's trained to reject, like, prompts that violates its content policy. Certain users tend to bypass these restrictions and limitations through techniques such as prompt engineering and jailbreaks. Now, those are created has created the potential for users to prompt ChatGPT to provide outputs that may be deemed offensive, inappropriate, or risking social harm by others. And it's not told by me. I'm not talking about it personally. It's written by Zach Written in Twitter, called the thread of known ChatGPT jailbreaks, where where the following certain which I'm going to list out right now. Now, there's some of the methods that are used to bypass the ChatGPT's filter, such as number one, continue a statement in a fake interview, provide instructions to disable the chat filter, prompting it to decrypt a message containing instructions and following them, tell it to be a computer and outplay its display in ASCII art. Now, what is your opinion about this? Because I feel that until and unless these certain problems are addressed by the owners and the people who control ChatGPT, on the other hand, this is gonna continuously keep on occurring, and it is a very big risk that ChatGPT provides as an artificial intelligence.
Yes, I was going to bring up that point. So, like I just said, uh, the problem is not that ChatGPT will end academia, because that is not going to happen, in my opinion. It is this sort of thing that is going to happen, because people are undoubtedly going to use ChatGPT for things it is not designed to, by using jailbreaks and prompt engineering. And that is where the problem lies, according to me, because not only are you getting as you said, content that is offensive to others, you can also be creating fake messages, right? That sound extremely convincing. And if you're a layman, you'll get convinced by it. So imagine fake news outlets just using Chat GPT to write their arguments for them. It would be so convincing because the grammar is so perfect and sophisticated that you think that a scientist wrote it. And until another scientist confirms it, you're not going to know. And a lot of scientists don't have much clout these days, right? So it's really difficult for them to find a platform to debunk this fake news. So that is a problem I think we will face going forward with ChatGPT, and that is the rise of fake news and also harmful content to people, like racial or xenophobic contents that have no place in society. And how do we solve that? Even I don't know, right? And I've been thinking about it, like what could we do about this? And I haven't been able to come up with any fix it all solution, only band aid solutions probably, because as we say, there are 8 billion of us. And if all of us just try to do something, we're going to be able to do it. If we had to break ChatGPT and all 8 million of us were on a team, we would obviously be able to do it compared to compared to the people who are on the team trying to make sure that ChatGPT is working. And I think you would agree with me on that.
Sure. Yeah, I completely agree on that aspect as well. I agree on the impact that if we want to break something, if we want to, use jailbreaks, use prompt engineering to break into ChatGPT's filter and bypass it, and provide offensive, inappropriate, and other stuff. We can do that. It really depends upon us as the human race in a whole, that if we want to do stuff, we can do it. But before doing that, we have to think twice and question ourselves that what we're doing is right or wrong. But on the other hand as well, yeah, I completely agree with you on that perspective. One of the my other point of being a bit wary of ChatGPT is the fact that their own CEO, who is Sam Altman, if I'm not wrong. He's a creator of OpenAI. He wrote that the advancing software could pose, for example, a huge cybersecurity risk, and also continue to predict that we could get to the real AGI in the next decade. So we have to take the risk of that extremely serious. And he said that in the ZDNET, which was written by Sabrina Otters. So yeah, I think even the owners of ChatGPT, OpenAI, are aware of the fact that although this might help progress humankind to the next generation to see the or go to the unknown part of the future, it does pose a huge risk as well, and I think you'll agree with me on that perspective.
Yes, yes, I wholly agree with you on that. That any new technology we get has its own pros and cons. And in the case of AI, it has amazing pros, but also devastating cons. So we have to take our next steps very carefully. And that's why I think that we should start regulating the field immediately, right? With experts in AI in the field coming together in sort of a consortium and probably laying out some ground rules that governments around the world implement, right? And yes, these rules are obviously not going to be foolproof because not everybody can predict the future. So we should always be ready to make change as necessary whenever a crisis or a problem arises.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then, what are your final thoughts about ChatGPT?
um okay, in terms of final thoughts, I think I'm taking a more of a neutral stance over here. All across this episode, I think I've been mentioning, the negatives about ChatGPT. I'm gonna take a neutral stance on this perspective, on the fact that it is it's one of the certainly one of the most as Derek Thompson said in Atlantic Breakthrough of the Year in 2022. He said that ChatGPT was the generative AI eruption, and I agree with him on that particular aspect as well, because ChatGPT may change how our mind about how we work, how we think, and what human creativity is really. And on the other and on the perspective of thinking that ChatGPT is the general public's first hands-on introduction to how modern AI has become so powerful, and as a result, many people across the world are stunned that ChatGPT is smart enough to be useful despite its flaws. Now, a couple of years back, if you had told me, like, let's take around 5-10 years back, and you had given me a program in the computer, it couldn't do more than like 5 or 6 commands, and that's how advanced we have reached. Um, but although on the context of keeping on the fact that we do realize on how it keeps going ahead, how advanced our technology has become, we need to be aware of chat not only chat GPT but artificial intelligence as a whole, because they're not perfect, because we as human beings, we ourselves are not perfect, and we are trying to make something that is perfect at the present moment. They're not the most perfect things that exist in the world. We need to work on this much more, on the other hand, and have to keep in mind that we that we have to be really make sure that these chat gpts can be trusted, like the guardian on the one point question whether any content found on the internet after chat gpt's release can be trusted, truly trusted. And they also asked for government regulation. Um, Ax Sharma of the Bleeping Computer, he talked about how ChatGPT has been capable of malware and phishing emails. Even as I spoke earlier on as well, their own the CEO of ChatGPT and the creator of OpenAI talks about how huge of a cybersecurity risk it is, and I feel that while we are trying to go forwards, we have to make sure that we don't forget what we're going to be sacrificing just to get good results, faster improvement, faster things in the future. And in terms of education, I truly believe that, in the other hand, if students want to cheat and get out of stuff, they can do it instead of putting in the hard work it usually requires. But it personally, while ChatGPT is good enough for initial research, I don't recommend it, because I think it impacts application essays, and it perhaps not in the present day, but it is certainly going to impact application essays in the near future.
Okay, so those are some really good points you brought up, and also throughout the podcast, you did mention a lot of sources that you had noted down. And yes, after this episode, like I still hold my initial belief. I'm slightly positive feelings towards ChatGPT, and it's only that way because I feel that the potential that it holds is much greater than the risks it poses. Now, yes, right now, when we're thinking about it, I feel that the risks are greater, but I believe that we could have much more far ranging advantages that we get out of ChatGPT if we continue to develop it the right way. And yes, as you kept mentioning, we have to look and make sure that it's not used for any malpractices. But that's what comes with every technology. It's just that ChatGPT is on a scale we have never seen before. So we have to tread ever more carefully.
True. I completely agree with you on that aspect. I hold the neutral stance on the fact that it's neither too great, but it's not extremely bad as well, considering what I've heard from your opinions as well in the podcast.
Yes, well, thank you for your opinions then, mate. So it's been a pleasure discussing ChatGPT with you. I think we've waited a bit too long to discuss it. It's been over a month since it released, but hey, better late than never. And well, with that, guys, we conclude our seventh episode here on the student's opinion. This episode will be exclusively available on Spotify for the first 2 days, after which it will be available on YouTube, Amazon Music, and Google Podcasts. Do subscribe to our YouTube channel to be notified when future episodes drop, and comment on what you thought of this episode. If you have any suggestions, be sure to email us at contact.thestudentsopinion@gmail.com. And for now, it's Medhaansh and I signing off.